February 1975. Snow-blanketed Haicheng. Temperatures dropped below 0 degrees Celsius, the kind of cold that freezes water solid within hours outdoors. And then, snakes began crawling out of their burrows. You heard that right. Snakes. Cold-blooded creatures. Slithering onto the surface in the middle of winter, it's like voluntarily stepping into a blizzard wearing only a t-shirt. They weren't searching for food. They weren't hunting. They simply emerged, writhing across the snow, and froze to death. If you were a local official back then, what would you think? Nature gone mad, or something is trembling beneath our feet. A few days later, Haicheng was struck by a powerful earthquake measuring around 7.3 on the Richter scale, strong enough to collapse buildings if people were still inside. But hundreds of thousands had already been evacuated, and this strange story began with the snakes. Haicheng, Liaoning Province. Early 1975. No modern satellites. No automated warning systems like today. All seismologists had were mechanical seismographs and reports from ordinary citizens. Rumors spread quickly, snakes crawling out of hibernation in the dead of winter. For them, it was nearly biological suicide. Snakes are ectothermic. Their body temperature depends on the environment. Below freezing, their bodies shut down. Slithering into the snow is like diving into an icy lake in January. Why would they do that? Scientists believe that before an earthquake, fault lines underground endure enormous pressure. Rocks compress to the point of generating constant micro-vibrations, like a deep, low hum too faint for human ears. At the same time, chemical changes in soil and water may make a snake's habitat suddenly unbearable. Imagine trying to sleep while your bed vibrates faintly for hours. Not strong enough to throw you off, but enough to make you uneasy. For snakes, that's not discomfort. That's a survival signal. Local authorities faced a risky decision. Should they trust incomplete instrument data or the collective behavior of nature itself? On February 4, an evacuation order was issued. More than 300,000 people left their homes. That number sounds abstract. So picture an entire city the size of Da Nang, grabbing their belongings and heading out into the winter cold. Hours later, the earth truly began to shake, and a question quietly took root. Did nature send a warning, one we rarely choose to hear? But snakes were not the only characters in this story. Long before Haicheng, scattered reports had described unusual animal behavior before earthquakes. Dogs barking endlessly without reason, birds scattering in chaotic flocks, fish leaping from ponds. Humans often dismiss these accounts as folklore. The problem is that a single strange behavior isn't convincing. One barking dog, maybe it saw a cat. A flock of birds flying wildly, maybe a loud noise startled them. But when multiple species react at the same time, across different places, the picture begins to change. The butterfly effect, a concept from chaos theory, suggests that a small change in one place can lead to major consequences elsewhere. Here, the wing beat wasn't from a butterfly, but from nature itself beneath the ground. P waves, the fastest-moving seismic waves, can arrive seconds, sometimes tens of seconds before the destructive waves follow. For humans, that window feels insignificant. For the hypersensitive nervous systems of animals, it can be enough to trigger panic. Imagine a living early warning network. Every dog, every bird, every snake acting as a mobile sensor. Wireless, battery-free, maintenance-free. In Haicheng, the accumulation of these small signals led to a massive decision. An entire city moved before the earth had a chance to roar. But if you think this was the first time humans received warnings from animals, you're missing a much older chapter. Travel back to 373 BCE, the ancient Greek city of Helike, a thriving coastal settlement. Historical accounts claim that, days before disaster struck, rats, snakes, weasels, and insects fled the city. They didn't hold press conferences. They didn't explain. They simply left. The people stayed. Then came the earthquake, followed by a tsunami. Halike vanished beneath the sea. Swallowed overnight. Ancient historians recorded the event. Of course, you might doubt the details. But the point worth thinking about isn't whether every detail is perfectly accurate, it's the recurring pattern. Nature reacts first. Humans understand later. Why do we always need a full-blown shock before believing the small signals? Maybe because we trust concrete, data, and things that can be measured. Animal behavior, on the other hand, is messy, hard to standardize, and doesn't fit neatly into an Excel chart. Yet Haicheng's history reveals something powerful. Sometimes a decision that saves hundreds of thousands of lives begins with taking seriously something that looks almost ridiculous. So next time you notice your pet acting strangely, or hear about birds scattering before a storm, will you laugh it off or pause for a moment? Maybe we don't need to return to ancient times to relearn survival. Maybe we just need to remember that we're not the only species reading the invisible messages the Earth writes beneath our feet. And if you're curious about how modern scientists are trying to turn animals into a global warning network, something like the Internet, but with fur and scales, that's a story worth saving for another conversation. Trust me, it's even wilder than snakes crawling across the snow.